My name is Luann Wise. I'm a chartered marketer and independent consultant. I've been running my own marketing consultancy for 7 years, and I'm also an author and a trainer. Today's session is about your personal brand and balancing the personal and professional mix of content online. It's a topic that's particularly important for freelancers and contracts because more often than not, you are your business. This session is being recorded. Just double check that on my screen. You'll be sent a copy of the recording and the slides via email afterwards. And I'm going to talk for about half an hour, and then there'll be plenty of time for Q&A at the end of the session. I will keep an eye on the questions box on my screen in case there's anything burning that comes up during the session, but hopefully all the questions can wait until the end. If we don't cover anything or you think of anything after today's session, my details are on the final slide, so you can get in touch with me. Okay, first a question. Have you ever posted anything online about yourself that you regretted? Here's some research findings. The age split itself is interesting. Under 25s are perhaps posting more online to later regret, but for over 25s, I think that number is still high, 32%. And I wonder how quickly that feeling of regret happens. Is it immediately, or does it just come when comments start to appear? Throughout this presentation, there's going to be some areas that I'm going to prompt you to consider. So hopefully you will never post anything that you come to regret. To start thinking about personal branding, I've got a few pictures to share. Now, on a webinar, I can't see how you're responding to each picture, but I'm confident that you will have an opinion on each of these. The first one is Simon Cowell, perhaps a younger looking Simon Cowell when I found this picture. Second, Victoria Beckham. She's certainly got a brand built around her, if not when she was in the Spice Girls, but certainly now she's in brand Beckham. Richard Branson. I've added some screenshots to this slide to show you the power of the individual. We all know that Richard Branson is the face of Virgin, but look at the size of his audience on his personal Twitter account, 12.4 million, versus the corporate account, just 237,000. And you'll find this for many personal accounts versus logoed corporate accounts. And that's what's really interesting. One more picture. Katie Hopkins. I wish I could see your reactions to this. It's so much easier, this section, in a face-to-face event. But I've just got one more. And this last one is really interesting because the feelings towards this picture has changed over the last 18 months. Yeah, Anton Tech. Now, the pictures I have shown you are all celebrities, but they do all have strong personal brands. We all think and feel something about them. We might respect them, we might disagree with their opinions, and we might feel some empathy towards them. But we do think and feel something when we see each of these people. And I think these feelings are stronger than if I'd shown pictures of corporate logos. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos says, a brand for a company is like a reputation for a person. Now, our reputation might be our most important asset in our careers. Warren Buffett said that it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. And he's right. Our reputations, particularly as freelancers and contractors, are fragile. And the way we behave online and offline can really make or break us. Jeff Bezos also said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And there's lots of rooms online. There's the various social media platforms, the groups on Facebook, the groups on LinkedIn, our website, and more. In fact, make a note right now to Google yourself and see where you can be found online. I believe we need to be very conscious of our personal brand and our reputation, and it's because of this. People do business with people because they choose to, not because they have to. We can always find others doing the same thing or selling the same product. It's the personal connection that makes the difference. And what we post on social media and how we behave in face-to-face situations influences this personal connection. Whether we like it or not, judgments are made about what we say, what we do, where we go, what we wear. and it's not all within our control. But what we can control, we should carefully consider. You need to know what you stand for. You need to know and live your values, and that's what builds and maintains these personal connections. Defining your values can take time. It can take careful consideration. You need to know what you want people to say about you when you're not in the room. So let's just take a look at some key points about personal branding before we come back to this. Personal branding. It's the practice of people marketing themselves and their careers as brands. It's something that many of us as freelancers and contractors do. It's how we win business, it's how we gain trust, it's how we go about what we're up to every day. It is about who you are and how others perceive you. And it's an ongoing process. There is no such thing as an overnight success. This is something that builds and builds. You know, something doesn't happen with one tweet or one LinkedIn post, even though one can break you, but to build your personal brand takes time and needs to be consistent and continuous. And it's rooted in authenticity. This presentation is about the professional versus the personal brand online, but ultimately we are who we are, and people can see through that if we're not authentic, if we're not true to ourselves. We can't be a different person during the day and during the evening and with our partners and online and offline. It just gets too confusing. We're not living in that kind of world. And your personal brand, as I said, is an asset and you need to manage it. And I'll come back to that at the end of the session. Now, why is personal branding so important? Well, because it's a way that we can build our credibility. It's a way that builds the trust that people need to have of us in business in particular. It's a way that we can become that go-to person for our area of expertise, our subject matter. And it's our way of differentiating ourselves from the next freelancer, from the next contractor, from the agencies and the other suppliers and the products. It's you, it's the people that make the difference. And when you're building your personal brand, it can give you a much higher perceived value. You can charge more if people know who you are, what you do and what you stand for. It can present many more opportunities if you're visible and people know who you are and what you stand for. And it's a way of engaging with your audience. And this is what we're going to start to talk about. As I started to research this presentation topic, I found a number of interesting online articles. Some talked about the importance of storytelling to help build a connection with your audience. And I know that it's often the storytelling that gets engagement on social media. The personal stories over the here's my latest blog type content. But there's sharing stories and there's oversharing. And as I watch my own social media news feeds, I can observe a real mix of sharing personal stories that help me connect on one level, but to be honest, on another level, they give me possible reasons not to want to do business with them. The stories can have the opposite effect and switch me off, and that is the reality of being visible. For example, would I want to do business with someone I know is having a tough time paying their bills and living on credit cards? If I wanted to work with them, I'd have to seriously consider what impact that could have on my own business and the service I provide. Now, I discussed this topic with some peers and we concluded that there is a difference around connecting. Resonating and having something in common can be important, but perhaps that personal detail is more relevant for sharing one-to-one over a coffee, and perhaps on the second or third coffee, not the first meeting. The personal information sharing perhaps should come when trust is building and the relationship is developing. Now, there's no right or wrong answer to this debate of sharing and what is oversharing. I've asked the question to various people online and offline, and the answer is it always depends. But after this session, have a think about what you're sharing online. Take a look through your social media feeds and see how you feel about the information that's being shared to you. How do you feel about the personal stories around body image, mental health, financial situations, etc.? Do they help you connect, or do they raise a red flag about doing business with them? Look at your own feeds. Are you perhaps sharing too much information, or are you not sharing anything about yourself at all? I read a great article by Anne Handley from Marketing Profs, which suggested that the way to balance your personal and professional presence online is by personalizing your brand, but not getting personal, showing you're human. Now, even Theresa May tried to do this with her dancing entrance to the conference last week. Not sure how that went down if I'd put a picture of her, but you know, she did try to show herself as human. And behind the scenes, your business is great content to share. What you're working on, where you are today, sharing something that has really inspired you. That's all good stuff. It says something about you, it differentiates you, it builds credibility, trust, you become the go-to person, you reap this high perceived value, more opportunities, and you're engaging with your audience. When you do have points of view, consider how you share them on social media. For some people, controversial is good. For others, they avoid it and only share what's half full rather than what's half empty. For example, I'm not sharing screenshots on this webinar today because there's hundreds of you potentially watching this, but if I was doing it face-to-face, I'd have some of these for discussion. One of them is that I see lots of examples of competitors battling their opinions. Some saw this, as I've done this in a face-to-face workshop, as a really good, healthy debate. But if I'm looking for that product or service, would I want to do business with someone that openly comments about their competitors online? I raised this question and we had a very different answer. Do you comment publicly on competitor activity, or do you just screenshot it and share it privately with a close friend? We do business with people we know, like, and trust. Not everyone is going to like us, and we can't do business with everyone. We need to understand what values help us know, like, and trust people, and also what values our potential customers are looking for. Okay, setting the scene. There was quite a lot to take in there, so that's why I didn't have loads of bullet points. I wanted you to listen to what I had to say on that. But for the rest of this session, I do have some top tips on getting this balance between being a professional with a personality and personal information sharing. As I said, I'll run through these slides and then we will have time for Q&A. Now, my top tips on balancing this are to have a social media policy of your own, even if you don't work for a big corporate with contracts and IT use and HR issues and things like that. As an individual posting on social media, showing up online, I believe that you should create your own social media policy. And that comes with the things around the language that you use, whether you are always going to be positive, whether you are going to comment on competitors' activity, whether you are going to share personal issues or not. Have a think about it and make your own social media policy to guide you. When you're tempted, when it's late at night or something's going up and it's a knee-jerk reaction, if you've had that social media policy conversation with yourself and even maybe written it down, it will really help you to manage your online reputation. What I'm going to talk about next is maybe think about how your social media accounts are set up. Knowing and understanding the privacy settings for each social media account that you have is really important so that you know what you're sharing and with whom. And then finally, it's about two key areas. One of them is your audience, and I'm going to talk to you about who you make friends with online, who you connect with, and who you follow, because that is all part of managing your online reputation. And finally, content. It's that thinking before you post, and I have a few top tips on that to share with you too. So setting up your social media accounts. This is a very brief run through. I'll add some resources to the slides as they go out if you need any more information in these areas. But basically, you have one LinkedIn personal profile. You may have a company page, but as an individual, everything that you're doing, you're engaging, you're building your network is on one LinkedIn profile. So it needs to be set up correctly, it needs to be complete, it needs to show you as a credible business professional and tell you your career story. Now, Facebook is slightly different because as an individual, you'll have a profile and you may, like me, close that down completely. So I only have friends and family on my Facebook profile. For a business, you can have a Facebook page. Slightly different setup. It's the way that you can communicate. People can like your page. It's not reciprocal like the Facebook profile is. On Twitter, you can have many accounts on Twitter if you choose to. If you're particularly opinionated in one area, if you have hobbies and interests in your life, you may decide to have more than one Twitter account so that the primary account used for your business isn't perhaps cluttered up with some of that information that's not relevant to your business focus. And on Instagram, you could have more than one account as well. But there's two areas to Instagram. There's the feed, the grid that you'll see on your phone that kind of is this content that always stays there unless you delete it or archive it. And then there's the stories that disappear within 24 hours. And my experience is that I use the Instagram feed and stories in slightly different ways. For me, the feed is very much the kind of the behind the scenes, what I'm doing, what I'm working on. You'll see pictures of my slides, you'll see me announce events that I'm going to, pictures of me speaking at events, my products and services. But I use my Instagram stories for a bit more kind of behind the scenes, what I'm doing, what I'm up to. My current Instagram story is that I went to see Gary Barlow at Cheltenham Literature Festival last night. It's only there for 24 hours, but it gives some sneak previews into my life and what I'm doing, some more personal information, but it does disappear and it's less visible. So think about how you're going to set up these accounts and what you're using them for and the audience of each one. And then it's down to privacy settings. And because this is a lunchtime webinar, and I've got some blogs on this that I will share with you. This is what I find when I run training sessions on LinkedIn is the biggest breakthrough in terms of people knowing who they want to connect with and whether they connect to their colleagues or competitors or other peers, and knowing what you're sharing. So there's just a couple that I want to highlight to you here, which is your privacy settings on LinkedIn. One of them, halfway down, is the sharing the profile edits. So this is about whether you share that you're making updates to your profile. I would suggest that they are switched off. The other one is the second one down, who can see your connections. Now, many people may be connecting with you basically to have a look through your black book, your Rolodex, your business card, folder. That's what they're trying to access. So you can close down your connections. You can't close down the connections that you've got in common, the mutual contacts, but you could decide that you don't want to share the rest of the information. That could stop you connecting with people. For example, I close down my connections. That means I'm happy to connect with lots of people that I've met, even recruiters, because I know that they're not going to have a route through my network. The other side is that I could have my connections completely open, people could have a look through, and that would say something about my business, who I'm connected to, that I have a strong network of marketers. But I've made a conscious decision on that point of privacy. And the other one with the privacy settings on LinkedIn is the profile viewing options. You can decide that when you're having a look around LinkedIn that you're happy to leave your footprint to tell people that you've viewed their profile, or you may want to view in private mode. You may want to go anonymous and have a look at competitors, suppliers, partners, potential people without them knowing. Again, this is all live stuff, so it doesn't have to be one and then it's fixed. You can switch about these settings all of the time. And Facebook settings are particularly important. I run many sessions and people have never been in to their settings to know what they're sharing and with whom. If you're not sure, go to your your Facebook personal profile, and in the header to the bottom right of the header image, you'll see 3 dots. And there you'll be able to view as public and see what people that you're not friends with can see. And sometimes that's very revealing. You can go through the privacy settings on Facebook and decide who can see your posts, who can see the things that you're tagged in, even who can see send you friend requests and see your friends lists. You can stay in complete control of these profiles. Of course, it is public, things can get leaked and hacked, but the more you understand the settings and the more you can be in control, the better. And I would also suggest on Facebook, not just your privacy, but also your timeline and tagging. Who can post onto your pages, who can comment, who can share photos without your permission. Really important in protecting your own online reputation, particularly as a freelancer or a contractor. And then the question about your audience. It's important to make conscious decisions about who you want in your world. On Twitter and Instagram, people can follow you, people can like your stuff, and you don't need to reciprocate. But you are also in control of who you follow and what content you like and profiles you like. On Facebook, you should make a conscious decision over whether you're going to accept friend requests or not. And this is often an interesting discussion as to whether you friend people in groups that you're active in, whether you friend clients, whether you friend partners, suppliers, etc., customers. You need to make a conscious decision around that. It's a tough one, but it will help with your reputation, with the content, because you know who you're sharing with and who you're not. Think again about who you're connecting with on LinkedIn. And if you don't want to connect with people, you can follow them, which basically means you see all of the content that they're sharing. You just don't have access to look at their connections and some other content on there. And then my final point around protecting your personal brand, getting the balance right online, is to really just think about your content and think before you post. If you've spent time working out your values, you've spent time thinking about your own social media policy and the kind of things that you want to be known for, and that you know what you want people to think about when you're not in the room, then use that before you post anything on social media or online at all. Consider, what do people need to know about you to do business with you? And kind of aim for this sweet spot between what you want to say and what they're interested in, and focus on being relevant. Whether it's relevant to share some personal information or not is entirely up to you. That it depends whether you need to share certain stories to resonate with your audience because of the products and services you provide, or whether it's less relevant, but you still need to be human about this. And the best way to be human and authentic is to show rather than tell. Demonstrate what you're doing, demonstrate your credibility, build trust by the content that you share, by the stories that you tell. Don't do the kind of buy my stuff, just show them what you're doing, what you're talking about, where you are, what you're working on. I also think it's particularly important in terms of social media and your personal brand to avoid some automation. We've often seen automated bots kind of following back or commenting on your posts. For example, I received many automated responses on Instagram and Twitter when I follow them to kind of say, you know, if you need help with social media management, get in touch, which for me is, you know, the reputation is ruined because I know that they use an automation and that they haven't looked at my profiles and my bio and my accounts at all. Also, you don't want to automate responses if it's a friend or someone you just met and it's kind of, you know, it's not personalized. People see through the automation. And ultimately, it's about staying on message. It's about keeping in that sweet spot, being consistent in what you're doing. You will build your personal brand by consistently telling your stories. It is that ongoing process so that others know what you do, what you stand for, and resonate with your story. No right or wrong here. What works for one person may not work for another. Everyone has their own stories. Everyone has their own backstory. It's about what you're comfortable sharing, but also consider your audience and ultimately, do they need to know this? Is it going to help your business? Or maybe is oversharing a much better for a cup of coffee face to face? It's 5 to 1. I've whizzed through those slides. Hopefully there was something in there for everyone and a few things to think about. If you have some questions, please pop them into the box. Just waiting for the questions to come through. No questions coming through yet. Everyone's Googling themselves or thinking about what they're posting and having a look through. It is really tough as a freelancer, you know, and the more you consider this topic and have a look through your feeds, you know, I don't mean to scare anyone by thinking that they're oversharing, but it is really important to have a look. Right, some questions coming through now. Let me just have a quick look at these. Do I have any good examples of social media policies? Yes, I have some templates. I will share those with the slide decks afterwards. Many social media policies are, the templates are kind of very corporate, but I definitely think even for the freelancer and contractor, there's some thoughts in there around what to post, what your responsibilities are, some guidelines and do's and don'ts. So I will share those with you. I also have a checklist on what to think about before you post, which I will share afterwards, which are things like, you know, is this on message? Does this resonate with my values? Does this give context to what I do? Is it helpful? Is it legal, decent, honest and truthful? So great question, and I will share that with the slide deck. Yeah, someone else asking for a social media policy template, I will send those out. Okay, I think I overthink what I'm going to share and end up not posting anything. I'm more guarded on LinkedIn as I can't settle on my approach, mainly because I see posts on contemporaries that I just wouldn't post. Absolutely, this isn't that you can switch off this webinar in a few minutes and go, right, I'm going to write my social media policy. I know what I want to do and what I don't want to do. Very often I find, you know, the examples that I've used in this presentation are because I knew I was writing this presentation and I've been looking for examples all the time and looking for examples that kind of make me go, oh, I wouldn't have done that, or oh, that makes me feel really uncomfortable, or actually that's a really nice way of sharing something. I think once you've done your social media policy and you've had a look through and you kind of go, yeah, I like that style or I don't like that style, you won't be overthinking it anymore. You will know what's right and what's wrong. And also, if you think about those key messages and what you want people to know about you, maybe start quite formal, and then at some points, you know, you may slip more into kind of some personal sharing. As I said, it's often the personal stories that get the information and get the engagement over that here's my blog post, which is quite formal. So maybe think about some content around how you started your business or things that you've learned from your first 2 years in business. And my great example of this is I did an article for Ipsos magazine last year on my first 6 years in business. And I had one story in there around, oh, I couldn't remember anything that happened in 2013. Oh yes, I got married and had a secret wedding in New York. And the main comment, sorry, that I got back on that wasn't like everything from every other year of when I won this award or did something that, it was like, oh, tell me more about the wedding. And that was a conversation starter, but that's a story that I'm happy to share because it was in context of a bigger piece. So just maybe spend some time thinking about what you're happy to share, not happy to share, and look at what other people are doing to guide you with that. Long answer. A couple more coming through. Is it essential that you share something about yourself, or can you get away with just business? So I think that the word personal information is sometimes the daunting bit. And even if you are your business or you're working in your business, by personal, I mean, it could be something that you're working on, a networking event that you're attending. It could be that you've just taken a course. It could be that you know, I've shared some certificates when my annual chartered marketer comes through. It doesn't need to be kind of personal about children or families or where you live or what you're eating, but just you as a business person and what you're doing, rather than top 10 tips or facts or these are the services I provide. So for me, it's the word personal, but maybe the personality and sharing things that inspire you or what you're working on is your way of doing that. Questions coming through. Okay, great question. So when discussing show don't tell, how does this work in terms of promoting an event? Do you have any examples of how to show the information rather than push them to buy a ticket? So actually, when I started working on this presentation a few weeks ago, I posted, I'm currently working on a new presentation, it's on this topic, just wondered what my network think about this subject area. Oh, and if you want to come along, the link's here. So it's almost a bit of a teaser about what you're doing and what you're working on, rather than here's my course, come along. Sometimes I share feedback and testimonials from previous events and then say, and if you want to come along too, here's the next date. It just adds more information around the event rather than just this is the event on this date at this day. So tease them with what the content's about, give them an insight into what they can expect when they come along. I've got some more information on this coming out in the next couple of weeks. So if you follow me on social media at all, there'll be lots more tips on that topic coming out. How often would you post to get the balance right of enough info for followers without pestering them with too much? Great question. When I first started doing training on social media, there was a rule of thirds that people, you know, it was talked about a lot online. Rule of thirds is almost like a third of the content you post online is about you and your business. A third of the information would be about perhaps something wider, like your industry and the context and what's going on, but still relevant to you and your business. And then a third, the kind of the insight, the personal, the behind the scenes. So yeah, a rule of thirds I think would work well there. Do I have any advice on what kind of language to use in your post, please? Don't want to be over friendly, but not too boring. Again, this is something that I wouldn't overthink. Everyone has their own style of speaking and their own style of writing. I don't think you can be anything other than what you are. Some people use kisses, some people use emojis and smiley faces, some people don't. It's entirely up to you and your style. I think if you're using it for business, I would go more down the professional route. But again, that's entirely up to you and how you engage with people and how you have conversations. I will say, in thinking about that social media policy, there's a few people online that do swear a lot. They do it naturally, they do it in presentations, they'll do it in their writing. But for me, I wouldn't share that content, I wouldn't retweet it, I wouldn't engage with it, and it doesn't resonate with me, that tone of voice, so they're not people that I would follow. So again, make a conscious decision, but be natural, don't overthink it. You can't write in a different way, you can't speak in a different way, but just maybe think about those kind of kisses and smiley faces and what you're sharing. Okay, a couple more, as it's just gone 1 o'clock, and you're all still with me, so thank you for staying. LinkedIn share profiles edit offsetting. I'm rebranding my LinkedIn profile in the next few weeks. How should I manage this relaunch? I have a free online course to help you review your LinkedIn profile. It gives you a task every day. I'll add the link to the notes. Basically, I would switch your profile edits off. There is also an area that you can switch off all the different sections from being public. But what I'd probably do is write everything in a Word document or write it offline, so that you're ready to kind of cut and paste it all into your LinkedIn profile when you're ready for the launch. These are great questions, thank you. I've said not to mix Facebook business pages with personal profiles. What about people we have in personal profile and want to add them to our page? Not exactly friends, but would like to have them as clients. So something is changing with Facebook, actually, which is going to help. So when you have a Facebook page, you can invite your friends to like your page. So that would probably be the best way to do it. The issue I've often had with Facebook and trying to engage on people's pages or on groups is that you do that with your personal profile, which should have a professional photo, even if, like mine, it's locked down to friends and family and the rest of the settings are locked down. I'm still kind of having conversations as my personal profile on Facebook. But they announced a change in the last couple of weeks, and that will be rolling out soon. Again, I'll include that link, that you will be able to engage on pages as your page. So hopefully that will make them more distinct from your personal profile. Some of what I've said in terms of who you're friends with, who you connect with, who you follow, you may decide to have a bit of a spring clean and remove some people from your audience and your networks. And you know what? That's absolutely fine. It's your call, it's your policy, your accounts, so you stay in control of them. If anyone wants to discuss these, I've given quite generic responses without knowing your business or the services you offer. So if anyone does want to talk about them in more detail, then my details are on the last slide here. And please feel free to get in touch with me. It's almost 1:10. I've gone through lots of questions and lots of slides, so I think I've probably given you lots to think about. So thank you for listening over a Monday lunchtime. I'm back again for another webinar on Monday the 12th of November, and my topic for that one is about using visual content for your social media marketing. A copy of this session will be emailed to you. As I said, please feel free to contact me. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.